Welcome to another episode of Alter Your Health Live, your source of information and inspiration to promote the holistic transformation of your health, and the health of our planet. I'm your host, Dr. Benjamin Alter.
And I'm Dr. Susanna Alter.
And today we're going to cover my favorite part of nutrition. My favorite, if I was going to focus in on anything in nutrition, this would be my favorite. And it's the topic of fiber, which is something that people don't talk about.
It's true.
They
talk about carbs, they talk about fat, they talk about protein. But where's the fiber at?
So we're going to tell you where the fiber's at in this talk. And we might also cover some other things that have been on our mind and in things that we've been discussing personally. But I think it's important to start with regard to fiber. It's important to know that fiber is only found in plants. And it's found in all plants. All plants have fiber. And a lot of people, I've heard so many people just dismiss fiber by saying, oh, you just poop it out, and like it's not important. It does. The fact of the matter is, fiber doesn't fuel us. It doesn't provide fuel for our body. So people say, oh, it's just like whatever. But what it does fuel is it fuels the microbiome in the gut, the microbiota of the gut. The organisms that live in the gut eat fiber. And those organisms are all the rage these days. So in my opinion, fiber should be all the rage.
It's true. You can't walk into a health food store without seeing probiotic after probiotic. I mean, it's a really hot topic, and it's because we are discovering that the health of our microbiome is directly just impacts the rest of our body. So it's really important to make sure that those little critters in the gut are doing well.
So I don't know about you, Dr. Susanna. Well, I do know about you, but I know that I am often asked what my favorite probiotics are.
Mm-hmm.
And to that question, I always respond, my favorite probiotics are prebiotics, which is actually another word that's used to describe fiber, is prebiotics. And prebiotics, it's interesting. Prebiotics are kind of catching on in the health and wellness world. People are taking prebiotic supplements and eating prebiotic foods, which are just fiber. But for some reason, the word fiber is still like, it's like for grandpa, it's like Metamucil to, prunes and stuff. And
right, your Fiber One cereal.
Yeah. So,
well, let's start at what are the two different types of fiber? Let's break it down here.
The two different types, is that a question for me?
Well, I'll start us off. So there's insoluble fiber and there's soluble fiber. And soluble fiber we find in foods that are kind of like slimy and like mucilaginous, if I can say that word. For example, like apples, they're filled with pectin, and blueberries are filled with pectin. But also you think of like flax seeds and chia seeds and that kind of gel that forms around the seed when you soak it in water. And so all of this is soluble fiber. And Ben, why don't you take it away? What's soluble fiber really good for?
I like to break it up into soluble and insoluble just to know the difference. But I think backing up a step, it's important to know that pretty much fiber in its natural form is found, like insoluble and soluble fiber most often coexist.
Yes, certainly.
Certainly. So yeah,
well, I was trying to get at, a lot of times doctors talk about eating insoluble fiber to help lower cholesterol levels. Because this kind of soluble fiber, it's also found in oatmeal, helps to bind excess cholesterol and helps you to pass it through your stool. So that's one use that the medical community uses fiber for and recommends it for. Insoluble fiber we find much more in kind of our leafy green vegetables, and we think of it as our like bulking fiber. And it's insoluble, so really just moves through your gut and helps you to have more regular bowel movements and also softer bowel movements. So that's probably more of the when people think about why should I eat fiber, they think about that aspect of it.
Yeah. So in addition to the cholesterol binding and lowering, capacity that fiber has, um, eating soluble and insoluble fiber also helps to bind toxins and all sorts of other stuff that might be present in our gut and just shuttle it out. So yeah, so that's definitely one aspect of what fiber does, is binding and shuttling stuff out. And I also like to think about fiber going through the intestinal tract as kind of like a scrub brush.
Mm-hmm.
Like mechanically, on the mechanical physical level, fiber is like fibrous compounds that scrub the intestines and keep things clean and bind onto those toxins and excess cholesterol and bulk the stool. And that's it. These are good things, important things.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Indeed.
So just scrolling through my notes here. So I want to talk about all of the benefits beyond beyond big poops. All of the benefits beyond big poops. So we talked about cholesterol control. We talked about the health of the microbiome, which is something that we can maybe talk about a little bit greater depth. Because the microbiome, it's honestly, I wouldn't say that I've scanned the research articles and read every research article that's written about the microbiome, but I do know that there's a lot of research being done, and a lot of people are realizing that the health of the microbiome is directly related to our mental health, as well as our physical health, as well as our weight. And there are different microbes in the gut that are associated with obesity over being a normal weight. And when we eat a diet that's higher in fiber, we're eating the microbes and we're fueling the microbes that promote a healthy weight. So it's important to consider fiber as kind of like a weight release, weight management supplement, or I guess food strategy.
Yeah, and what we like to think about that, I mean, we hear over and over how important it is to have a diverse microbiome in our gut. And to really get a very diverse microbiome, you have to eat a very diverse diet with lots of different fruits and vegetables being a really important component.
Yeah. So yeah. That's about it in terms of like the weight management, weight release kind of approach with a high fiber diet. The other thing that's really important to know about fiber is, since it's not digested by us and it's digested by the microbes in our gut, it fills our stomach. And we've got these stretch receptors in the stomach that are really important when it comes to signaling to our brains that we are satiated, that we're full. When our stomach stretches, we literally feel it. And that's one way that we know that we've eaten enough. And if a diet is low in fiber, I'll just put a piece of a chicken breast, for example, 0 grams of fiber in a chicken breast. You eat a chicken breast that's like, I don't know if you can see me, it's like 2 inches by 3 inches. I don't know what a standard chicken breast is, but that's not that much food quantity wise. So it goes in your stomach and it kind of sits there like as most things do, but it doesn't fill and expand to signal those stretch receptors and tell you that you're necessarily full, unless you eat like a big chicken breast that's like yeah. anyways, you get the idea. Like the more quantity that you eat, the more you're going to signal to your brain that you're full, which makes total sense. So, you know, Susanna and I, we always have a plate that's like totally overflowing with food. And it might only be like 600 or 700 calories, but it's totally fiberful, as we like to say. And it's nutrient dense and naturally calorie low, low calorie, but really high fiber.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Am I missing anything?
No, that's it. I mean, so, a lot of people focus on, what macronutrients should I be getting in my diet? But it's almost like if you just focus on getting a lot of fiber in your diet, like you're probably going to be eating a really healthy diet.
Yeah, that's exactly what I say. If you're going to focus on one, I hate focusing on numbers, and macros and like grams of this and grams of that. But if you are to focus on one thing, then I would say focus on fiber.
But some people, I do want to address this then, because some people might be saying, oh, but the high fiber foods, they just make me really gassy. Like beans?
I definitely want.
I can't eat
that's
beans.
That's kind of that's an important topic to touch upon for sure. And I was going to say something else, but it might be slipping out of my consciousness. So why don't you talk about?
Sorry, I took you off track.
Yeah, why don't you talk about that while I remember?
Okay, well.
So yeah, people, I hear it all the time as well.
Yeah,
I can't digest beans.
And I've been through this myself with my GI issue. I remember I couldn't eat beans that many vegetables because it was just fiber and it caused a lot of bloating. But what happens when there's some disturbances in the gut microbiome, or if like you just haven't been eating a very high fiber diet for a long time, so maybe it's not really balanced in the proper way. So when you do give those little critters, when you do give them food, when you do give them prebiotics, they like have a party. They throw a party, right?
They get overwhelmed. They're like, oh my gosh, what do we do with all this food?
Yeah. So that's gonna in some gas and some flatulence. And I think what some people say is that if I have small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, if I feed those bugs fiber, then they're gonna like take over and they're the ones causing all this gas and they're releasing all this toxic byproduct. But in my experience, it's really not the case. What one needs to do is just slowly introduce little bits of fiber into the diet, even if that's starting with like 5 beans or starting with like a nibble of broccoli. You just
gotta be a bean counter and count your beans. But literally, sometimes it's 1 spoonful one day, 2 spoonfuls the next. And the other thing is to diversify the types of beans and the fiber sources. So maybe eating a spoonful of black beans on Monday and maybe some sweet potato and brassicas on Tuesday, and maybe 2 spoonfuls of garbanzo beans on Wednesday. And ideally, you'll get to the point where you'll have all of these more fiber-full foods on all days. And then that's a happy day.
Yeah. So don't get discouraged if you bloat after eating a big serving of Brussels sprouts. Maybe you just need to kind of build up the tolerance, your microbiome's tolerance to all this good food.
It's true. The thing that slipped out of my mind before that maybe I should have brought up at the beginning of this talk was how pathetic we are in general, Susanna.
I'm pathetic.
Susanna doesn't like when I take this tone. But But, in our culture, in our society, in the United States, the average intake of fiber is somewhere around 15 grams. And the recommended daily intake of fiber is 25 grams. But honestly,
how much do I eat in a day?
Well,
how much do you
well,
eat?
the recommended daily intake is 25 grams, which is like a low bar. They're set like the Food and Nutrition Board is setting the bar really low for us. We're supposed to be eating 25 grams of fiber a day. And I like to raise the bar to like 50 grams.
Oh, yeah. I was thinking 70.
Well, 50 grams is like in my opinion, 50 grams is like a reasonably obtainable goal for anyone and everyone.
It's true.
No excuses. But yeah, I think like 70 or 80. I know that once, or probably more than once, we've eaten like 100 grams of fiber in a day, which
we should get a gold medal.
Yeah.
Because that's 100 grams is oh, hi, Mom. that's you'd have to be eating a lot of food to get that much fiber.
It's gonna be a big bowl of food, a big plate of food. So yeah, I think it's important to note that when we're talking about the other macronutrients, the carbs, the proteins, the fats, no one's not meeting their nutritional requirement of protein. There's no one in our world that is protein deficient. There's no one that is fat deficient.
In our country, maybe not in our world.
Yeah. Well, what protein deficiency really means is malnourishment.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what that equates to. Mm-hmm. So yeah, but my point is everyone walking around for the most part is fiber deficient, and the health effects of that, are the health issues that we see today on a large scale. Yeah. Anything you want to fill in there before I go to? I wanted to also talk about gut health.
Oh yeah.
Fiber and gut health. You kind of talked about, feeding the right gut bacteria.
No, carry on.
Okay. So the other thing that people have discovered with regard to the microbiome and the gut health is that there is a very important nutrient for gut health, and that is short chain fatty acids. And some people even take short chain fatty acid supplements like butyrate and propionate and those kind of things. But those short chain fatty acids that nourish the colon and the lower digestive tract are actually the byproduct of eating fiber. So if you eat diets that are high in fiber, you're going to have high levels of short chain fatty acids in the lower digestive tract. That actually it's a highly protective against colon cancer, inflammatory bowel disease, all sorts of things. So increasing short chain fatty acid content naturally with a high fiber diet is really, really important for cancer prevention and prevention of chronic gastrointestinal diseases. Mm-hmm. That's what I wanted to say about gut health. So should we maybe talk about where people should get their fibers, like what foods?
Sure. Yeah.
And we're so basically you get the idea that we like to get our medicine through the food, and of course there are fiber supplements, but I think that's pretty sad to revert to fiber supplements. I think that it's better than nothing, maybe. Mm-hmm. But what are your favorite fiberful foods?
Oh, my favorite fiberful foods. Well, fruit actually has quite a bit of fiber in it. I think people forget that. Grapes are a great source of fiber. Mango, you can see the fiber when you're taking a bite of fresh mango. But honestly, I don't go a day without eating a leafy green salad. And I learned that from my mom. But really, I mean, I feel like leafy greens, they are the scrub brush. They just like go through the intestines and, you know, scrub out all the little nooks and crannies. And so
Eat your scrub brush.
eat greens every day, raw greens every day. But what else? I mean, I know you're a big flax guy, Ben.
Flax seeds are a staple in my smoothie. And if you're not eating a smoothie, which I highly encourage every human being to start their day with a smoothie, but if you're not, that's totally okay. And you can grind the flax seeds fresh and sprinkle them on oatmeal or a salad or anything like that. But flax seeds, in addition to being a great source of fiber, they're also a great source of essential fatty acids and other health promoting nutrients. Mm-hmm. And for me, I mean, beans are like, gosh, they're so good. I love every single type of bean. And beans are one of those foods that it seems like people love them or hate them. And it seems like the people that do hate them, they hate them because it gives them gas or that sort of thing. Yeah. So like we said before, a spoonful of beans at a time, ramp it up, and maybe you'll love them as much as I do. I don't know. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and whole grains are also a source of fiber. By whole grains, I mean brown rice, quinoa, millet,
intact
things like that.
Grains.
When we talk about grains, we love grains and we eat grains. They're not as nutrient dense as vegetables and fruits are, but it's still definitely a staple in our diet and still a high fiber food. So
totally. And then potatoes are also, I mean, how can we forget about potatoes? No discrimination against any type of potato, whether it's a white potato, a brown potato, a yellow potato, a blue potato, an orange potato. We love them all. And of course, with all of these more starchy, fiberful foods, we need to maybe reiterate the fact that it is important to also remember some of the information that we talked about in prior podcast episodes about fat sort of combination and how high carbohydrate, starch-based foods are best eaten in a low-fat environment. So, rather than pouring olive oil or butter on a potato, I always say mash in an avocado if you really want some fat, because an avocado is also a great source of fiber. Mm-hmm. And it's got a very well balanced kind of profile with regard to fiber and good fats and that sort of thing. So this turned into a appetite provoking episode for me. I haven't had my second meal yet, my second snack yet, but
go do that.
Let's see. That might be it for now.
I think that's a good ending point.
Yeah, I mean, we wanted to maybe talk about the carnivore diet, mm-hmm. which we just learned about. Well, I learned about it a while ago. And a carnivore diet, I mean, we're not going to dive into it, but it's just funny that, we're fiber focused people, and a carnivore diet is a diet that is nil fiber, zero. And it's just amazing to consider like how these people poop and let alone other things of that are required for survival. But I'm actually inspired to dive into the carnivore diet and investigate a little bit to know how people are surviving. Mm-hmm. So if anyone has information about the carnivore diet, we just listened to a podcast, a Joe Rogan podcast episode.
And just to kind of clarify, these are human beings that are eating nothing but meat and water and salt.
Yes, so. It's not the cat.
No, my cat eats a carnivore diet and she's thriving.
Yeah, we're not cats. Anyways, that might be about it for now.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for tuning in as usual. And just a reminder for listeners to get more info on this podcast and many more, visit alter.health/podcast. This is episode 27. But that means that there's 7 other episodes and lots more coming, and would also really appreciate rating, review, feedback in any way, shape, or form. And we look forward to continuing delivering content, inspiration, information to fuel your health, your growth. And that's all, folks. All right. So peace and love until next time.